Hi, John Schneider here. As you know, a lot of people ask me questions about Dukes of Hazzard, and I answer questions about Dukes. I have been for 40 years. But I seldom sit down unless it's at a Comic Con or something and actually answer questions about Smallville, which is another fantastic show that I was fortunate enough to have a part in. So I'm going to answer the top 5 questions I have about Smallville. Question number 1. How did I get the part? Well, it was an interesting time because I was a big Superman on television fan. And when the opportunity came around, when my agent called me and said, hey, there's this show called Smallville, and they would like for you to come in and read. You remember there was a movie called Pleasantville that was out. So I said, what is this, a television version of Pleasantville? And they said, no, 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 no. It's an installment. It's a prequel to Superman. It's the story of Superman as a teenager. And to be perfectly honest with you, I said, look, I'm such a big Superman fan that I'm not remotely interested in coming in and being part of another nail in the coffin of my favorite superhero. And they said, look, just read it. Would you please read the script? So I read the script, and I was probably 8 or 9 pages into it, and I realized that this pilot, this series was going to be spectacular. And I decided then and there to do anything I could to be on that show. So when I went into audition, I went into the writers of Smallville, who were also Dukes of Hazzard fans, but I went in more as Jonathan Kent. Like you've heard the story of me going in as Bo Duke. So I went in and I was rather strict and rather abrupt with them. And I do believe that that's one of the main reasons why I got the part. I talked to them about, there's a difference between having young children, and I mean brand new children, and having teenagers. You treat your teenagers differently. You think about raising your teenagers differently than you do young children. So I want you to know that that's how I'm going to do this. And if that's not what you're looking for, then I should leave now. And I think being stern, being strict that way was a great part of me getting the role. Okay, number 2. Who was the most fun to work with on Smallville? Well, I love Tom Welling. Tom Welling is a doll. When we started Smallville, he'd only done, I think, a couple of episodes of the Gilmore Girls. So he was pretty fresh, he was pretty new, and he was eager to learn about anything he could learn about. And at that point, I had been on Dukes of Hazzard. I'd done a show for 7 years, and that was a long time. Little did we know that Smallville was going to run for 10. And his experience would be so vast by the end. Love, love, love Tom Welling. But I have to tell you that working with Michael Rosenclown, I call him Michael Rosenclown, was an absolute ball. This is a funny, funny man. Lex Luthor is such a stoic individual, and I'm here to tell you, Michael Rosenbaum is not. So if you don't believe me, go ahead and check out there are some outtakes somewhere on YouTube. Check them out, Smallville outtakes. So, Michael Rosenbaum, a lot of fun. Okay, number 3, what was my favorite episode? My favorite episode, I loved the episode where I died. Loved that. I think that's one of the best hours of television. But I have to say that I believe the episode I directed was fantastic with Naman and Sagith, and we had this wonderful 360 shot. We set up on a round track, and we choreographed this whole thing where Clark would get stabbed, which of course is impossible, but kryptonite being what it is. So check that episode out. I'm not going to tell you the name. I want you to go through and find it because I think that's a good chore for you. Okay, number 4. Was it my idea to have the Dukes of Hazzard playing on the radio in the episode of Smallville, Nicodemus? No, It was not my idea, but I thought it was wonderful. Now, my understanding is that they put that in there when they did the rough cut. They were editing. So the editors put that in there in the rough cut. It's kind of a joke. It's kind of something funny. But Miles and Al were such big fans of the Dukes of Hazzard, and they got such a kick out of the fact that Jonathan Kent was listening to Waylon Jennings singing a theme song to Dukes of Hazzard that they decided to keep it in. So I cannot take credit for that. That was not my idea. That was their idea. Okay, number 5. Actually, this is probably should be the number 1 question, but number 5. For now, I'll answer more, but these questions just came in. Number 5, was it my idea? Did I have anything to do with having Tom Wopat come on to Smallville as Jonathan Kent's best friend from childhood? No, it was not my idea, but I loved the idea of having Tom come in. So we had those two worlds kind of colliding. The Dukes of Hazzard world, 3 worlds, the Dukes of Hazzard world, the John Schneider, Tom Wopat world, and the Smallville world, all colliding together. And I have to tell you, there's a wonderful scene where we're sitting in the Kent farm in the living room, talking about the good old days, and one of us mentions Chickasaw County, and that to me is pretty much a highlight of those 2 shows coming together. Okay, those were the 5 questions people asked me, but I'm going to throw something else in. When I travel to do a Comic-Con or I go out in the world, of course, there's a lot of people who love the Dukes of Hazzard. I love the Dukes of Hazzard still. But the reaction that I get, so when men and women in uniform who grew up watching Smallville or who watched Smallville in a tent in Baghdad during active military service, when they come up to me, there's a look in their eyes that is respect, it's honor, it's love. And I can't tell you what that means to me. I've had so many folks come up and say that Jonathan Kent got them through a hard time, whether it was at home, whether it was away from home, or whether it was in the military. So to Miles and Al, who created Smallville, to Peter Roth, who was the president of Warner Brothers at the time, Warner Brothers Television, when we started it, to Joe Davola, who was a producer on Smallville, to all the people who worked on Smallville, and Annette and Tom and John Glover and everybody. I want to say thank you for having me be involved in what I feel is the crown jewel of the Superman legacy. I'm John Schneider. If you have more questions, just put them down at the bottom here, and I'll be happy to answer them. You take care. Bye-bye.